This is going to be an in-depth video about this build of this Toyota Tundra Prerunner. So we've had this truck since November, and it has been on 3 big trips. 1 full week in Glamis for Thanksgiving, 1 full week in Glamis for Christmas to New Year's, and then 1 full week at King of the Hammers. And it's got its fair share of miles and runtime on it, where we've really got a chance to get to know it well, find its limitations. I'm not even sure I found the limitations. I found my limitations, that's for sure. But I kind of wanted to share with you guys some of the details and some of the magic that's in this build, because this is probably the best working non-cage truck I've ever owned. I've had a couple trucks. So let's get into the hows and the whys and so on. I want to go over some of the cosmetic stuff first, and maybe the interior, and then we'll take a deep dive into the suspension and what sets this truck apart from similar builds. So let's talk about cosmetics here. ADV glass, front and rear, seems to be one of the more popular brands for the Tundras. I think people just like the styling of it. I've had, I think, 5 or 6 Gen 2s, and every single one of them has had this glass on it. It does have a good fit. There's a couple little stubborn spots over on the passenger side that I've seen on a couple of these trucks, where there's a larger gap right there. I've seen that gap on a few, and also not seen it, so maybe it depends on who's installing it. Otherwise, this is good looking glass for this year make and model for sure. This is also a wrap. This is not paint. This truck was blue in its former life, so the cab is still blue, and the rest of it is all wrapped in red. Kind of talked about these bumpers quite a bit, but just to touch on it for this video, this is an SS built bumper. It is a production bumper that they put out of Phoenix, Arizona. You can go on their website and buy it. The valance is an option. This light bar is an option. This light bar was actually extended a little bit, which would cost you extra, and you'd have to talk to Steve about doing that, because we wanted a little bit more clearance for the lights and the plugs. But it's very similar to what they would offer in production, depending on what lights you're running, whether or not you would need that. And it's got a nice skid plate on it. I do wish that that skid plate was 3/16. This one is 1/8 inch, and it just bends in so darn easy, but still better than having nothing. Rear bumper is by Mazzulla Off-Road. These are called plated bumpers. Very simple, very clean, matches the lines. I might have cut this dovetail. In fact, I know I would have. I would have cut this dovetail a little bit lower so it lined up with this point and hid this, if it were me doing this original install. But that's just me being picky. Otherwise, super clean. Evil Manufacturing third brake light does have those little tiny lights are your brake lights, so you still have a third brake light. Amber is for dust, white is for cargo or backing up. Then there's also a cap put on the antenna mount. Those caps are kind of clean, just keeps the threads nice and clean. A little extra OCD stuff there. But yeah, this is a nice setup for off-road. And most plus for the bed cover. It's a roll up and it comes off real easily. But this keeps everything out of the sun if you park outside, or the elements, whichever it be. Might even deter some thieves, who knows. This bed and contents and so on has been gone over many times in previous videos, so I'm just going to do a quick scan of it. But if you want more details, there is a storage box on the other side right there. You'll have to see some of the Instagram posts or stories, or the previous YouTube video. I will drop a link down in the description to that video in case you want to watch it. All right, interior. So pretty basic in here. PRP seats, which I really like because they really hold you in place when you're bouncing around off-road. AEM gauges for boost and trans temp. There is a factory trans temp gauge as well, though. And this center console was added because this truck wasn't a center console truck originally. So shifters up here, and PCI race radio, PCI intercom. Obviously these plates were custom made, and the idea was to have these plates either powder coated black or wrapped in, you know, leather, maybe a nice vinyl or something, just so something matches. Probably could install like the push to talks right here, the buttons for push to talks if you're going to run intercoms, and of course the aux beam switch system. I went with, this is on a previous video, but I went with this magnetic mic, which is an Amazon product, with a magnet on it because I don't like having a latch. I can just throw that up there and be done with it. So other than that, this interior is pretty darn stock. Super nice seat mounts, and this one is on a slider, driver's on a slider, so that helps a ton. These just need to be powder coated, which I was going to do at the same time that I recovered these seats. It's probably going to go dark gray where the blue is, so that's more of a neutral thing, and start doing a blue delete, maybe red wrap. I have a whole nother roll of it for the door jambs. All right, so let's get straight to it. It does have a TRD Supercharger, and compared to previous Tundras, and I even have a 2021 Tundra right now, it does not have a supercharger on it. This truck is so much faster, so much more torque, so much more throttle response. It's apples and oranges, crazy different. So yeah, I'm kind of sold on how awesome these superchargers are. Coil rad radiator, Moroso, I believe it's called a catch can, stock air intake, Odyssey battery, and then this is all of the aux beam brain and fuse setup. Just to touch on this real quick, this is a 2011. This is a 2014 conversion, meaning if you have a 2011 and you want it to look like 2014 and newer, you got to buy 14 fenders, the hood, the grill, the headlights. These are just some Amazon headlights, by the way. I could probably send you a link if you're interested. Nothing special though. The bulbs in them are horrible. I need to get new bulbs. But yeah, this is a 2011 with the 2014 cosmetic conversion. So this is just basically Line X. And the idea here is those front tires throw rocks along your rocker panels, and this part, since it flares out because they're a flared fender for the wider track width, this is to protect. Like, look, see, there's a rock chip right there. So I mean, you know, you could argue you could Line X all the way up here, but that's for protection. And some people don't like the look. I'm pretty indifferent about it because I do understand how much it protects and helps, and I kind of am over whining about it. Definitely works better on a black truck because it blends in better. But yeah, that's what that's for. 37 12 50 17 D-rated Toyo Open Country muds on 17-inch Ultra X103 beadlock wheels. The white Tundra I have at home, which I'll do a little comparison video this week, has 37 13 50s on it, and you can definitely see the difference in the width. All right, let's get into the suspension. So this is LSK's long travel race kit. You get these big beefy tie rods, you get axles, lower control arms, spindle. It's all on Uniballs and Heims, except for the lower control arm pivots are still on bushings. 2.5 coilover, 3.5 bypass, and this is bumped off the top. Bump off the top means the bump is bumping off the top of the upper control arm. So people say bump off the upper, bump off the top, you know, just, I guess it's slang. And the difference is a lot of these kits come with a bump stop and a can that you can weld in this little open area down here, in this area down here, and it will bump off the lower. Problem is the leverage point, because it's pivoting right there, the leverage is so great that it puts more deflection into it. Everything flexes. It doesn't work nearly as good. It's better than nothing, don't get me wrong, but this is so much better. So when you hear people talk about bumped off the top, bumped off the upper, that's a big deal, in my opinion, and makes a big difference in performance. And some of the magic of this LSK kit is not just travel. I mean, yeah, their website says 17. I measured 17. Even if it's only 16, that is still more than most Raptor four-wheel drive setups. But it doesn't matter. 15, 16, 17. It's all in your valving, your shock setup, and suspension design. And they really knocked this thing out of the park. There was pretty much no obstacle out just past King Proving Grounds in KOH. There's a real cool whip section out there that most trucks that are non-caged won't hit. At least they won't hit it at speed. I've tried many times in all of my trucks. So this thing smashed them with confidence. And I was like, wow. So the kit does work. These Tundras do work. But there's more to it. We'll get to it. So to summarize this front suspension, it's basically the same travel as most two-wheel drive long travel kits that are out there. They're all in that 16, 17 range. Yeah, some of them are 18. Yeah, some of them might even be 20, but very few and only select your make and models. So to be able to be in that 16 to 17 range and have the four-wheel drive magic button, it's hard to ignore that. This thing works. You know, you just put it in four-wheel drive to get unstuck or to go through a super sandy section, but you leave it in two-wheel drive most of the time, and this thing rips. All right, let's talk about the rear. This is really where the magic is. You know, most all these Tundras and Prerunners you see running around non-caged are all leaf spring trucks. This truck is linked, which is now becoming a thing. LSK's had this around for a while, but now all these Raptors are starting to do it in production kits that you can actually buy on their website. But this is the difference between one of my Dirt King trucks with a spring under I-96 pack, which work great.
That's a leaf sprung truck right there. That's a man's truck.
You hit something big in those trucks, you're probably going to get a little buck. This truck does not buck. It handles like a linked truck. When it hits those big bumps, the whole truck comes up instead of the rear. So it's, you know, kind of proper. That's what these things normally would do. So if you've got a really good performing front end, which this truck has, that'll allow you to get on top of whoops, which is typically 45 to 50 miles an hour, I'd say is average for getting on top of a lot of the whoops in the common areas that most of us play in Southern California. To be able to run up in that 60, 65, dare I say 70, because this truck will do it, but without a cage, that's probably me setting a bad example. To be confident, links make all the difference between leaf springs or not, that you're not going to get bucked over your head. And there's more to it that I was talking about. Sorry about this all being dirty. This is all King of the Hammer, mud, dirt, water, and so on. But this is typically a C channel frame. And all of this has been plated in. Not only has it been plated in all the way forward, but it's also got all this lacing. It's completely chassis laced, chassis bracing, whatever you want to call it, in the rear. And there's another set of this above the bed for all the mounting. So this thing's been double downed on. So an already well-performing platform that's this rigid in the chassis makes the suspension work that much better. If you don't understand that, that's just basically like when people use the theory of, oh, you know, if the truck was caged, all of the chassis would be more rigid and the suspension would work better. Well, this truck obviously isn't caged, but this frame plating and this chassis lacing has helped in the stiffness and rigidity of the chassis to make the suspension work better. And it does. This truck flat out boogies. So yeah, that's kind of like the magic potion of this truck. And it's not something that other people aren't doing. People do this, but you don't see it that often. All right, real quick, let's talk about the design and why it was designed this way for this link setup. The idea was to be able to keep the factory fuel tank. By keeping the factory fuel tank, you cannot run traditional wishbone style upper links. So if you can't do that, you're not running a traditional 4-link. So what they do is they do these lower links. They do one upper link right there, and that keeps the axle from rotating. Typically, the wishbone that this truck does not have, that would run from top here to the frame and top here to the frame, would keep the axle from rotating and from going side to side. So this one is keeping it from rotating, the top one, and then this one is what keeps it from going side to side. So you've got it welded here, and this big gnarly bracket off the frame here that is braced up to the frame, and then the actual track bar, panhard bar, whatever you want to call it, is going over here to the axle. Become pretty darn common. A lot of people are starting to run this. People don't want to tear into their fuel system. They want to keep that reliability of a stock fuel pump or filter and so on, or just they want their whole bed. Yeah, for example, all the crap can come out of this bed and you basically have a truck bed again. It's all on quick release. So yeah, that's basically the design and why they designed it that way. I feel like there's been a little bit of a shift in the industry these last few years with CAD. Everybody stayed home for COVID and everyone turned into a designer, which is actually cool because it's progressed the products and it's progressed our industry. And now we got a lot of cool stuff. So people are calling these setups like a daily driver link kit. That's what it says on LSK's website. That's also what it says on SVC's website for their Raptors. To be able to have a truck that goes caged and linked speeds, you know, arguably irresponsible. So it's like anything else. Watch that skinny pedal and use good judgment. But what I meant was it's really progressed the industry. It's kind of been a change. We're going to a new level. And I've kind of gotten to the point where leaf sprung trucks just don't interest me anymore. And I don't want to sound like a a jerk when I say that, because I've had so many leaf spring trucks that work great, and I've praised them, especially if they're caged. You can make a leaf spring truck work pretty darn good. And then you go back to that chassis thing again. A lot of flex without the cage, and the leaf spring really becomes a boing pogo stick for you. But I'm just excited to see where this industry is going and where these products are going, because it kind of just blows my mind. This truck really performed better than I could have ever imagined. All right, I'm gonna kind of summarize this and close this thing out just before everybody says, "Oh, you're on the Tundra bandwagon. Oh, you're trying to push Tundras." I'm still a Chevy guy at heart. Um, but I'm looking to buy an OBS F-150 and put an LS in it. So clearly I'm confused, and all I've owned recently is Toyotas. But I'm really still a Chevy guy. I always will be. But for, I don't know, 20, 21 inch travel, 16, 17 travel, four-wheel drive, supercharged, modern amenities, you got air conditioning and a heater, you can smash whoops, you can drive this thing to Disneyland. It's just crazy what you get nowadays in performance and creature comforts. And I just really think that these packages knock it out of the park, and people might be falling asleep on them a little bit, drinking the Raptor Kool-Aid. That's okay. I can see all those guys in my rearview mirror. So, hey, thanks for watching this. I really appreciate it, you guys. Please subscribe to our channel. It would really help us out. Like this video. Maybe even turn on notifications so you know when we post the next video. And we'll see you on the next one.